Aphrodisiac foods for Valentine's Day. New research brings clarity to diet foods. Dr. Adam Drewnowski on research approaches for the prevention and treatment of obesity. And guess what? Retailers' most annoying habits. For the week of February 7th, 2011, this is Food News Today. Good morning. Today's broadcast is pre-recorded and we will not be able to hold our regular live chat. But please feel free to email me at phil@supermarketguru.com with any thoughts or comments that you may have. Food News Today is sponsored by ConAgra Foods, who shares with me the desire to provide the most current, interesting, and unbiased food news. Valentine's Day is just days away, and in our Food Sense story today, we take a look at aphrodisiacs. Thousands of years ago, Egyptian priests were forbidden to eat onions in case the temptation for sex became too great. What's the truth? Food is an aphrodisiac, but not necessarily for the reasons you might think. Some foods do actually stimulate blood flow, like onions, and combined with the look, mouthfeel, and aroma of certain foods, have all been used as aphrodisiacs throughout time. So what foods are the ones to make this Valentine's Day extra special? An Islamic myth tells the tale that after Adam and Eve succumbed to the apple, they started covering themselves with banana leaves, not fig leaves. And while the banana shape is partially responsible for the popularity of the banana as an aphrodisiac food, it's really because of a more practical standpoint. Bananas are rich in potassium and B vitamins that are necessities for sex hormone production. Have you ever wondered why Valentine's Day has become synonymous with chocolate? Well, chocolate is a flavorful source of quick energy and can even elevate our mood. Chocolate contains two related alkaloid stimulants, theobromine and caffeine. It also is rich in PEA, a naturally occurring compound that has effects similar to amphetamine. Chocolate contains more antioxidants than red wine, and the secret for ultimate passion is to combine the two. Try a glass of Cabernet with a bit of dark chocolate for a very sensuous treat. Garlic has been used for centuries in Europe and among the Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, Chinese, and Japanese, and is one of the most widespread ancient aphrodisiac remedies. It stimulates the secretion of gastric juices, it aids digestion, and increases the blood flow. The heat in garlic is said to stir sexual desire. And that's just a few foods. Now don't forget oysters, which are rich in zinc, which stimulates our metabolism. Vanilla, the scent and flavor that is believed to increase lust. And then there's ginger, pine nuts, figs, and basil, all of which is thought and called aphrodisiacs. In our Health and Wellness Report today, a new study published in the journal Neuroimage, and it adds to the idea of sensory-specific satiety and has found that the brain responds differently to caloric and non-caloric sweet foods. The study found that the caloric beverages affected the activation of amygdala, the reward area of our brain. Researchers led by Dr. Smeets from the University Medical Center in Utrecht in the Netherlands pose a possible explanation. The sucrose-containing orangeade is rewarding due to its caloric content, while the non-caloric drink is sweet, but not metabolically rewarding. So therefore, it is less biologically relevant. The amygdala is involved in the emotional processing of stimuli and is thought to influence behaviors by dealing with sensory cues that are associated with reward, and by then linking those cues to emotion. Previous work has also shown that the anticipation of food, due to its aroma, can also activate the amygdala, while it deactivates in response to pleasant taste. The implications of this study signal a need for more research into the effectiveness of non-caloric sweeteners as a tool to reducing overall calorie consumption. In light of the updated 2010 Dietary Guidelines for Americans, this study supports the notion of drinking water instead of sugary drinks. Satisfying your sweet tooth may very well be linked with the activation of the amygdala. This week, we spoke with Dr. Adam Drewnowski, a world-renowned leader in innovative research approaches for the prevention and treatment of obesity. Here's what he had to say. Dr. Drewnowski, what is your takeaway on the updated 2010 Dietary Guidelines that was just released last week?
My take is that these are not dietary guidelines for all Americans, and my fond hope was that these guidelines would take into account the financial situation of many American families and talk about a bit more about the affordability of different foods. The foods that we eat or should be eating ought to be nutritious, yes, but also affordable and appealing. The current dietary guidelines talk about nutrition, not so much about the affordability.
Now, with your knowledge, how would you have rewritten the guidelines? Do you believe it should have focused on something specific like sodium, fat, or other categories of foods in more detail?
Yes, I do. The guidelines make an emphasis on fresh, intact, non-processed foods. For a food to be nutrient-dense or nutrient-rich in the current guidelines, it has to be minimally processed with no solid fats and no added sugars. That takes out of consideration, seemingly, the entire world of processed foods. And processed foods do provide consumers with good nutrition at an affordable price. I'm not saying all processed foods. I'm saying there are processed foods which should not really be dismissed quite so easily. They're a major component of healthy nutrition. So I think that the dietary guidelines went in a direction of fresh, intact, minimally processed. I think that some recognition of processed foods and the role of the food industry in providing healthy foods to Americans should have been there.
So what can retailers do to help?
Retailers can do any number of things. Identifying nutritious, affordable foods within every supermarket aisle is one thing. There are various ways of nutrient profiling foods, assessing scores to healthy, affordable foods. It's all there. Retailers can do a lot. Retailers can educate their consumers, and retailers can also make sure that they are aware that people who go to a specific supermarket are already, to an extent, classified by age, income, education, and so on. Some supermarkets are not like other supermarkets, and they differ in price, and they differ in the type of clients that they have. And those clients will have different health needs and different nutrition needs, and they need to be catered to.
I want to thank Dr. Drewnowski for his great insights. Thanks again for joining us. Now, more talk about retailers from the Supermarket Guru Consumer Panel. What are retailers' most annoying habits? Well, here's what some of our Facebook fans had to say. Jim B. Smith said, "The big thing that torques my jaws is having to go to the other end of the store to get items that you would normally think belong together. For example, eggs, milk, and cheese. These items are often spread out. Very frustrating. Or what about the 19-cent a can shelf price that you then see on the end cap is 5 for $1? Give me a break." Athena Tom Seaforth says, "Not having staff to assist customers on the floor. Perhaps they should shift to a performance-based pay scale." And here's one of my favorites. Comes from Virginia Lee in Memphis. "I'd love for them to create a nutrition outreach program in the local schools that would teach kids and teachers how to make healthy, simple snacks and meals and not just eat prefab mac and cheese in a cup and such." In our online survey, here's what we found. While 60% of our consumer panel said that they were willing to put up with these everyday annoyances from food retailers, the number one reason was the store's location. What aggravated them most? 59% said their store ran out of sale items. Some good news. Just 1 out of 10 said their store did not offer rain checks. And when it came to perishables like dairy, meat, produce, seafood, deli, and bakery, the number one annoyance was high prices. That was cited by a little over a third, followed almost by the same number of people complaining that the foods did not look fresh. For the complete consumer panel survey, just go to thelemperreport.com. For Food News Today, I'm Phil Lemper. Thanks for joining us. And if you have a colleague in retailing, the media, or a blogger who would also like to receive our advance email, please direct them to foodnewstoday.com to sign up. Next week's stories will appear magically in your Tuesday email.